Mr. Willie Wee Winkley, will you cut down those weeds? By Mama T. In the town of Belvedere, in a house quite distinctly, lived a strange little man named Willie Wee Winkley. Now, what made Winkley strange was not his feet or his nose, or that his hair was kept combed in a neat little row, and though he wore pants that were half checkered and half stripes, and on the top of his head he wore a small light, not strange as in strange like some strangeness could be, but what made Winkley strange was his garden of weeds. He had weeds growing left and weeds growing right. There were weeds that had grown through the clouds out of sight. There were round weeds and square weeds and 1, 2, and 3 weeds. There were red weeds and blue weeds and Kalamazoo weeds. There was only one problem with this weed situation. It was causing his neighbor some weed irritation. In the eyes of Mr. Winkley, his garden was a success. But in the eyes of his neighbors, these weeds were a mess. So together in unity, in hopes to succeed, they cried out in one voice, "Mr. Willie Wee Winkley, will you cut down those weeds? They have tangled our houses, our cats and our mouses. They have grown past our toeses and up to our noses. Mr. Willie Wee Winkley, we must take a stand before all of your weeds take over our land." The weed complaint seemed to go on and go on. Yes, the weed complaint went on from sunset till dawn. Then taking a pot, he gained everyone's attention while holding on tight to his small weed invention. Then clearing his throat to be heard loud and clear, he said, "Listen, my dear neighbors, you have nothing to fear. From the top of this plant to its dear little root, it's a plant, not a weed. It's a zoot-a-mazoot. It's a hard-working plant that waits for your command to help when you need it, taking work off your hands. You need only say, 'Zoot, come here,' or 'There stay,' and this dear little plant is happy to obey. Now, the 1, 2, and 3 plant is a great sensation. It helps keep numbers straight in the month of taxation, while the Kalamazoo helps you clean off your plate, and it will clean them real good before time gets too late. But wait, my dear neighbors, I have planted more seed, and this plant is nothing compared to the zeed." Then Mr. Winkley let out a big sneeze, and up popped out of nowhere the zeed. Now this plant, thank you. Now this plant, you'll see that it's true that the zeed, if you race it, will outrace you. Whether painting a fence or tying a shoe, the zeed is smart. It can do homework too. Just put it to work. Try real hard to do your best, and this little plant will pass every test. When Winkley was finished speaking, not a sound could be heard. Blink, blink. All the neighbors just stood there, blink, blink, and spoke not a word, until someone cried, "Hip, hip, hooray! Mr. Winkley has saved the day!" With a hip, hip, hooray and a toss in the air by a zoot that just happened to be growing there. So the next time that you complain about your neighbor's weeds, simply take a close look. It just might be a zeed. The end. Wasn't that wonderful? That was such a silly, silly, silly story. But I would love it if you would come and listen to another one. Will you do that? I'm Mama T. Bye.